Alright, hello, welcome back. I'm going to do a really quick, really fast, hopefully brief on exactly what's going on with Sohrab Moradi, because yesterday, whilst doing some work, I recognized that there was a bit of a loophole through which Sohrab Moradi can still qualify for Tokyo. And right now, if I had to put money on whether it's going to happen, I'd put money on it happening. That's how realistic this actually is. So the first thing is it's worth just looking at Sohrab's current performances during this qualification period so you can see where he's at. Then I can walk us through exactly how this is going to work. So here we can see we have the 2018 IWF champs at the top. The last competition at the bottom is the International Naeem Suleimanoglu tournament, though actually the most recent was this here, the 2020 Asian champs. And he has 1,242 Roby points from the first competition. That's because it was a gold tier event, as you can see here, which meant that he got a 10% Roby bonus, i.e. his Robies were multiplied by 1.1, and he hit over world records 186, 230, and he got that. He then competed again, but he didn't lift. He then competed again after his injury, and he only went 81.20. That gave him 90 Roby points. Boy, I bet he wishes right now that he went at least 100, 140 there. He'd be in a much simpler situation right now. Then in period 3, he turned up here at the Naeem Suleimanoglu tournament and he didn't put up any lifts, but it counts as a competition. Then he went to the West Asian Champs, 163, 207, and then most recently Asian Champs, 174, 210. So the way, as you know, and I'm going to do this so quickly, is that what had to happen to qualify for the Olympics is 6 total competitions, which he has done, you can see here. 4 totals, which you can see he's done here, with at least 1 in each qualification period, which you can see he's done here. Now, things have changed, as you'll know if you've watched the news show, but they haven't changed in a drastic way in terms of how to qualify. At least they haven't changed in the way that's going to benefit Sohrab's points. What they have done is done a slight reshuffling of people situated above him. Now you don't need a third period total, but Sohrab needs to use his because he doesn't have totals really that he can use in the other qualification periods because you need 4. He's only got 2 in the other 2 qualification periods. And so that reshuffling has made me notice something really interesting. So I was scrolling through this article on the Tehran Times, Sohrab Moradi to compete in Cali for Olympic ticket. So there is, as you can see here, May 10th to 14th, South American, Ibero-American, and Open Senior Championships, Cali, Colombia. And right here is a silver, which means it's a silver tier competition, i.e. you multiply the Roby points by 1.05, it's a 5% bonus. It turns out, reading the Tehran Times, that Sohrab Moradi is flying over there and that he needs to hit a 388 kilo total in competition to secure his spot at Tokyo 2020. Now, this to me made no sense. I mean, look, we've seen him do 416 kilos in the total here. 388 is only 4 kilos more than he just did the other day in a somewhat disappointing competition for him, 174, 210. And it just made no sense. And I've been through the numbers so many times, and given the old standings before the IWF decided a couple of days ago that you no longer had to have a period 3 total, I'd run the numbers. He needed new world records. He needed like a 425 total to get into that Olympic slot. And that would be new world records. That would be 185, 230. It's essentially impossible. In fact, no, it would be 195, 230, 190, 240, 185, 240, something like that. Just ridiculous totals. But anyway, I was interested by this 388. They were so sure of 388 kilos in competition to get Sohrab to the Olympics. So I worked it out. I did the Roby points, I did the Roby calculations. I just wanted to see what would happen if he did total 388 and essentially get a total in Roby points that would be more than this one right here, his 4th total that he needs, and see what that would do to his overall Roby totals. So here we have the list of the 96s. We have Tian Tao at the top, 4,500 plus points, and way down here, all the way in 25th, we have Sohrab Moradi with 3,089 points. Now, if Sohrab Moradi totals 388 with the 1.05 times Roby multiplier, that will give him 3,227 Roby points. It's not that much, and if we look, that would put him in 21st position still. Although, when I worked this out, I then noticed 3,227 is 1 Roby point more than 3,226, which is what currently from Kyrgyzstan Bekdullah Rasulbekov has got. So then I thought, okay, that's probably not a coincidence that this is exactly 1 point above, considering we're dealing with multiples of, well, numbers in the thousands at this point. And I worked it out. And here's how this is going to work. The top 8 in every weight category go to the Olympics. Right here we have Tian, Mezzo. Rodriguez isn't going to go because he's an 81. Rivas, who might not go because he's Colombia. Yoheni Tsukansu, who suddenly is now in the mix. Anton Plesnoy, and so on and so forth. There are a few of these lifters that we can remove straight away. For example, Brian Rodriguez, he's an 81. Revas Davitadze, he's a Georgian, but he's not really 96, and the spot's going to go to Anton Plesnoy. Petar Asayanak, because Yoheni Tsukansu from Belarus is already in the Belarusian spot, and so on and so forth. So here's what has to happen for Sohrab Moradi to qualify for the Olympics if he gets 388 kilos. Right now, sat in the continental slot, i.e. outside of the top 8, the highest in the Asian region is Toshiki Yamamoto. And despite the fact that Toshiki is from the host nation and host nation athletes get extra slots, if he's in an actual slot, he takes that slot. So he will take the continental slot, and suddenly Sohrab Moradi can no longer go. But if Iran can get Toshiki Yamamoto into the top 8, then suddenly interesting things happen. And the way that that would happen would be either Tian Tao isn't selected, B is that Colombia are banned and removed from the Olympics, which is a really strong possibility at this point. And then 3, that say Yoheni Tsukansu isn't actually chosen, or I should say Evgeny Tsukansu isn't really chosen, because Belarus has 1 male spot and 1 female slot due to their doping violations. So if just one of those 3 things happen, Toshiki Yamamoto will move up into the top 8, leaving that continental slot open. But who's it going to be open for? Not Sohrab Moradi, Ali Miri. But here's the thing, Ali Miri is from Iran, and the Iranians want to send Sohrab Moradi because he is actually the better athlete. So they can decline that slot, and then it will get sent to, the IWF will offer that slot to the next highest placed athlete, who also happens to be an Iranian, Reza Beyralvand. And some of you might be looking at this and thinking, but what about the other Asian lifter there, Jang Yeon-hak? Well, he's the second of the Koreans, so he's not going to go because Korea already has a spot. So then Iran can turn that slot down, and then it gets offered to another Iranian weightlifter. Here we have Musavi Jarahi, Sayed Musavi Jarahi, also from Iran. And then Iran can turn that slot down. Then the IWF will offer it to the next highest athlete, who is currently Bekdulot Razulbekov, 3,226 points. If Sohrab in a few hours totals 388 kilos, he will have 3,227 points, meaning that he will be above Bekdulot Razulbekov. And once Iran turns down the slots from Ali Miri, from Reza Beyralvand, and from Sayed Musavi Jarahi, it will then go to Sohrab Moradi, the 2016 Olympic champion. I hope that wasn't too difficult to follow. Here's the TLDR. Asia gets 1 continental slot outside of the top 8. Currently in that continental slot is Toshiki Yamamoto. He needs to move up into the top 8. This can happen either because 1, Tian Tao isn't selected, 2, Colombia isn't allowed to compete at the Olympics, or 3, Evgeny Tsukansu isn't selected because Belarus only gets 1 athlete. Or something else could happen that we just aren't aware of. If one of those 3 things happens, Toshiki Yamamoto moves into the top 8 and the continental slot becomes free and will be offered to an Iranian. That Iranian can turn it down. The next highest is another Iranian. That Iranian can turn it down. The next highest is another Iranian. That Iranian can turn it down. And the next highest currently is Razulbekov from Kyrgyzstan. But given the 388 that Sohrab is hopefully about to do, Sohrab will then be just above Razulbekov, and he will be the 4th person that it is handed down to in this weird loophole of a system. I hope that all makes sense. I hope that by the time we're watching this, we might know that Sohrab Moradi has indeed qualified, or is probably going to be qualifying for Tokyo. I didn't think this would happen. No, it still can't happen for Astami, so let's not get into that one. But yes, Sohrab Moradi might be going to Tokyo, and if he does, and if he wins, it will be one of the most glorious, sensational, motivational comebacks that we have seen ever in this sport. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll catch you all on another episode of the Weightlifting House news show podcast clips thing.